they are coming. Oh, growing high. Oh, mama, oh,
Big H di por sí.
mama, oh, 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 mama, oh.
Yo, my peoples, what's up? It's your boys, we back once again. Silverback Chronicles podcast. It's your boy Big H. I got my brother Dre.
Yo, what's up, my brother? I love you.
What's good? Love you more, bro.
I love everybody.
Word. Triple C.
Yo.
What's good, baby?
Maintaining and chilling, bro.
All day, every day. Listen, folks, I hope everybody's doing well. Had a phenomenal weekend. Stay safe. Listen, we back. Episode 99, by the way.
Yeah, 99.
Listen.
Yeah.
Shit is about to get real.
It's please. No more used to tell them, go grab your drink.
Grab your church socks, your camp socks.
Yeah.
Get that bourbon in your hand.
Tuck your sweats into the socks.
Right. Listen, if the kids are still up running around, put them to bed.
Yeah, because you about to get some shit. Put them to sleep.
Listen, what's about to go down in less than 2 minutes, you don't want to miss none of it.
Hey, yo, if you're listening to this on like the morning drive, you're going to be late.
You're going to be late to work.
You're going to be late. And it's going to be worth it.
If your boss says something like, yo, fuck you didn't hear what I just heard.
Put him on.
Word.
Right. Now,
listen to what the fuck I'm listening to. It's about to be real crazy.
This is what I was like.
Word.
And he's going to say, oh, shit.
Listen, the one we got for you tonight is, listen, I'm just going to keep it brief with it. Real quick to our sponsors.
Let's just do it.
All right. Let me give a quick shout out. Berman and Darby. You already know the law firm. My brother, Charlie Schultz. You can reach him at 410-769-5400. That's 410-769-5400. Give a quick shout out to Starbucks USA. Don't forget the discount code, all caps, Silverback Podcast. Get you 20% off. All right? Everybody, we love you. We appreciate you. This is episode 99. I'm getting right into it. There's no fucking around tonight. Listen, the gentleman we have here tonight, he embodies police work. Everything that I know, that Dre knows, is crazy. When I got to the Northeast, he took me out. At the time, he was a major. I was walking foot. He took me out in the car with him.
Wait. You're walking foot?
I'm walking foot.
So that's you brand new?
I'm brand spanking new.
He didn't know you?
Yo. Knew we was from New York. I was on the Frankfurt Apartments over there top. There used to be Sector 3, now it's Sector 4. Walking foot. He came, scooped me up, said, yo, come in the car. Took me around the Northeast, took me to all the spots, and just chopped it up with me. And he was our major, man. That's the first time I met this man. And he treated me like I was one of his. And I love him for that. Ever since then, he's always been the same man, the same day I met him. He's never changed. He went all the way through the ranks of the department, and he was our commissioner. And he's still our commissioner to this day. He's the people's commissioner. You wanna know why he's the people's commissioner? Because everybody respected him. Everybody loved the work he did. He knew how to take care of police because he went through the ranks. He takes care of his people. He let the guerrillas out when it was time to do guerrilla work and didn't care, didn't give two shits about it because he's a real one. He knows this police work ain't easy. It ain't easy at all. A lot of people think it's easy. It's far from easy. He made people want to come to work. He made police work as a family.
How about those parties?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Through parties.
Shift parties.
Christmas party.
Everything.
Christmas party was like, yo, you been to the Northeast Christmas party?
What?
They be like, you eat coke?
listen. Yo, he made sure for Adam's shift, which is the overnight shift, they had food. Baker's shift, the morning shift, he made sure they had food when they came in for roll call. Charlie's shift, the evening shift, when they came in, he made sure everybody night had a nice hot plate of food. He made police work so much fun. He made it a family oriented. That's why things are not the same. But with no further ado, our former commissioner, Darryl De Sousa, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man, you got me watery eyed over here, Big Gordon. Yeah, watery eyed, man.
Yo,
I
love you like
it.
that.
Real shit.
Different level.
I appreciate that, brother.
I appreciate you.
And I remember
to have you here.
both of y'all. I'm honored to be here. It's a privilege to be here with you guys, and looking at y'all, I think I'm looking at my own son.
Wow.
That's how I see policing. That's how I see young men. That's how I see community. And even the young men and the young ladies in the community, they were always family. And I think that's the key. That's the key to successful policing. You treat people like they're your own family. So it has to start internally. It has to start within the police department. And that's the posture that I took. And I never told you this, Big H. I never told you this, but when you had academy class that was getting ready to graduate, I would always call the academy commander. And I would always say, who's on, who's top 10? Who's top 10?
Right.
And I remember they said, this guy right here, Horton, Horton knows what's up.
Wow.
So I said, well, I want him in the Northeast.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of both of you guys.
Wow.
I remember how you guys, back then, how you policed.
Yeah.
And, I'm just really, truly proud of the accomplishments that you guys have done over the years, because listening to some of your work and hearing your previous podcasts, y'all said something that made the hair stand up on my back, where y'all said bridging the gap, and how do you bridge the gap? And I think that y'all get it. You understand.
Yes, sir.
Right,
it made everything. I appreciate everything that you've done to me and that you continue to do for me. And we don't even have to be together every day, but whenever we see each other, it's always family. It's always
Amen.
love.
Hell yeah.
I don't care what any of us been through. That shows the true value of a man. If you can go through something and still see you like nothing ever happened, it's nothing.
Yeah.
More importantly, I want to know if you good.
I'm good, man. I'm 100% good. I'm always praying and thinking about you guys. I obviously thought about you guys when I was still a member of the police department, and when I had my darkest hours and went away, I spent many nights thinking about you guys and just hoping you guys would be just great and fine. And now that I'm home, I'm glad you guys are great. And I remember, Dre, seeing you in the cleaners. You were dropping your stuff off at the one of our favorite cleaners. And when you left, I told the cleaners, I'm not sure if you've been back yet, but I told the cleaners his next 5 visits, I want to pay his bill to get his uniforms clean.
Wow.
So I don't know if you've been back there yet. Yeah. So your next 5 trips, just your uniforms now, brother.
No, wow.
Nah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that day and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, I wish he was back.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
I
listen,
go back in the office and,
Right.
y'all have we, and I say we because it's still in my heart, I still bleed blue,
Absolutely.
have the hardest job probably in the world. And, policing doesn't get the respect that it needs. And folks don't know what y'all go through on a daily basis. And what y'all go through is so challenging. And I'm just honored that y'all are, you have a smile on your face and you're standing tall. You're standing in belief, and you still want to do the job with passion. And it's difficult to do that because some of the things you see on a regular basis. And I had the opportunity when I was away at the federal institution. I taught a class there. And we talked about de-escalation and coping mechanisms, and we talked about trauma. And one of the first things I talked about was what police officers see on a daily basis. And I explained to this one young man that I said to him, imagine you going to work, 8 o'clock in the morning and working, 8, 9, 10 hours, or going to work 4 o'clock in the afternoon and working, to 2 in the morning. And you come across a missing person, some mom or dad can't find their daughter. And then you come across a robbery. Then you cross a call for service where, somebody's mom or dad left the house because they have dementia or Alzheimer's, which my mom, suffered from before she passed in 2016. And then you go to a crime scene where someone is unfortunately lying on the streets and, a victim of a gunshot wound. And you see the mom, the dad, the father, the son, the daughter, the grandmom running to them and you holding them and embracing them and telling them that it's going to be okay. Then you go to a house fire. And I was telling the guys at the institution that in Baltimore City, this is something that y'all go through on a shift, on an 8-9 hour shift. I'm not talking about a week or a month or even 3 months. Y'all go through this on a shift and eventually it's going to take a toll on you. I'm not a health profession, but I can just speak from experience. It is going to take a toll on you. And it's called secondary trauma. And it's all the things that you see on a regular basis every day. So that example I gave you, how many times have you seen it, Dre? How many times have you gone to those similar calls where your activity sheet is filled up on the front and back? And at the end of the day, you go home and you're so stressed from what you saw and you compartmentalize it. You keep it in. And then you're off the next day. And what's the two things that you do? You go to the gym or you hook up with your guys and you have a drink.
100%.
Absolutely.
And how does that help? Right. How does that help? Yeah. So there's young men and young women on the streets of Baltimore in the community that also experience this secondary trauma as well. And they see it. They see it. They look out their window as a young kid and they see the yellow tape. They look out their window and they see the police officer chasing someone. They look out their window and they see somebody shot. They look out their window and they see a guy, selling, X, Y, or Z. And they see all these things at a young age and they experience the same trauma. So the trauma that you experience and the trauma that they experience, eventually it's going to come to a boil. And I think that is a catastrophe. That's like two trains running into each other and nobody wants to talk about that.
Head-on collision. It's
a head-on collision,
right?
So there's things that need to be put in place. We can talk about all these issues, but there's things that need to be put in place. I mean, you all should have some type of mental health evaluation, not 6 months or not after a police shooting or not after something extremely tragic. Y'all should have it really at the end of every single shift. And I will go as far as saying maybe halfway through your shift, you come off the streets and you have a conversation with a professional. And how are you doing? How do you feel? What did you just experience? That's missing in police work.
Absolutely.
And we can talk about all, the consent decree. We can talk about de-escalation. We can talk about defunding the police, but that's one thing that's missing. At the end of the day, you're human and the person that you confront is human. And like you said, Dre, it's a head-on collision and it has to be addressed before it happens. Proactive.
Wow. That's huge because a lot of us aren't, living after we retire, not even a year after we retire. And that's just sad. And I agree. There needs to be more health evaluations. There needs to be more proactive, getting to know your officers, making sure they're okay. Prior to the shift, how's everything going? You feeling all right today? Because it's paramount to policing. And it's just unfortunate, time after time, doing 20 years of this, what the city's got to offer you, a lot of officers, it's just unfortunate that they're just not living. And that's crazy to me. That's absolutely insane.
But they have what's the program they have now?
It's
The crisis
intervention. The health and wellness. Also, yeah.
Yeah. And I think like if you go through something traumatic now, they take you off the street and you talk to like whoever that rep is in that district.
Yeah.
So they implemented that. But here's the big question, right? Like, how many of us are going to use it?
Yeah.
Because we don't like to talk.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just keep it
that's
also,
up. Yeah.
Well, Dre, it shouldn't be when you go through something.
Right.
It really should be at the end of a shift or
just like a
every 2
mental
or 3
check-in.
days. It should be.
Yeah. Instead of a run sheet, like, hey, sit down for like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. The community, they expect a lot from us. And one thing that they should expect is that, our wellness is up to par and we're not working, a 10-hour shift and then getting drafted to work another 4 hours. People don't even realize that. People don't even realize that. And I this is the part of policing I hated was this whole drafting thing. And I was I couldn't sleep at night when I knew that y'all or, some other officers on the streets worked their 10-hour shift. And then when they thought they would get off and they thought they would go home, they got drafted for another 4 hours.
Yeah.
So no one even talks about the fatigue level.
Yep.
And then got to be back to work.
And then got to be back to work. Yeah.
Or imagine doing, after that draft, you get into a shooting.
That's right.
How is your skill supposed to?
Well, I remember reading a article. I remember doing some research when I had the privilege to do a fellowship. And I read some research work that was done about fatigue in policing. And long story short is that when fatigue sets in, and they did a study, when fatigue sets in, and it was certain levels of it, but when fatigue sets in, there's a likelihood of you making a administrative error or a operational error. So if you think about that, administrative error, we probably could live with that, but nowadays it's even tough. You want to make sure your report is 100% accurate. But the operational error is even more challenging because you don't want to have to go in somebody's house and make a mistake.
Life or death.
Yeah, life or death. You know what I mean? People don't realize that police officers go to homes and have to make a decision almost immediately. So you take that secondary trauma, everything that you saw, you go into a house for whatever the call for service may be, and you have a split second to make a decision. But yet, on the other hand, where you have men and women who go through crisis and see therapists, and what's the first thing a therapist is going to say? If you're feeling a certain way, anxiety or whatever the case may be, they're going to say, well, take a breath, count to 3. Y'all don't have that opportunity to count to 3.
Absolutely not.
You can't count to 3. You can't. And these are some of the things that people don't talk about that's an issue and a challenge with police officers, not just in Baltimore, but just all over the country.
How about that example? How about the many officers, right, that we all know make the right decision all day, right? And because of fatigue, he falls asleep on the wheel on the way home.
Yeah.
Could you, I made it through all this. And because I've been tired, fatigue, like you said, this is what gets me.
Well, I've seen it. I've seen it at the Northeast.
All the time.
I've seen it at the Northeast.
And it's tragic because, again, people do not know that. These are like the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like these are like when it's danger, and you escape it. You're basically making decisions all day, right?
Correct.
In these situations. And you did them all correct. And you're finally off. And because of the fatigue,
you're too relaxed driving home.
Yeah.
So it's like we can't escape it.
Yeah.
It's something's gonna grab us. And we just have to keep. That's what we do all day.
And I've been in positions where an officer, I've seen it. I've seen those cases before where an officer wrecked their car. And the first thing is that you hear bosses above you, charge him. Was he drinking? Why did he wreck the car? Well, hold on a minute. Let's go back and find out how many hours he worked first.
Yeah, let's investigate a little bit.
Yeah, right. Let's investigate. Let's take a look at his run sheet.
How about that?
I'm glad you said that.
Has anyone said that? Take a look at his run sheet.
Right.
And I know y'all, and I know people don't understand a run sheet. has, 12 or 13 entries on the first side, and the back side is, another
Absolutely.
15 or 16. I know y'all, because I used to watch y'all run sheets.
Y'all
would fill it
up both sides, you was busy.
Yeah, if you filled up both sides of your run sheet, you were busy. You know what I mean? And that's what y'all did. And that's what a lot of men and women in the police department did. It was very rare that you would see a run sheet with 2 or 3 entries. I mean, if it had 2 or 3 entries, that means they were on some type of detail.
Or in the north.
Hospital detail.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, on the northern.
Shout out to the northern. I love
Or
you
shout
guys.
out to the northern.
Oh, man. I almost fell out the chair on
Too
that one,
much shit
Dre.
going on over there.
I'm not
Down there is though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
yeah.
for the people that don't know, where you from, born and raised? How about we let the world know that?
Come on now.
New York all day.
Jamaica, Queens.
Oh.
Jamaica, Queens. Yeah.
So what was life like growing up in New York? And what made the transition down to Baltimore?
So I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, and the most challenging part was when I was a young man, a young child. I got bused to a school when I was, 11 or 12 years old, because the school district closed down the private school where I was going, right there in Jamaica, Queens, right on. It's called New York Boulevard. It's Guy Brewer now.
Oh, wow.
And I got bused to a school, to a community that didn't care for people that looked like me or looked like us. And that was a challenge every day. It was a challenge every day because I was that type of guy at a young age that I wanted to make sure my brothers and sisters got to the bus and got on the bus okay. We were chased by folks that didn't look like me with bats and chains, and running to the bus stop and getting on the bus and, getting the bus window destroyed and just barely making it home. So it was a challenge. And I said to myself, at 11 and 12 years old, man, I wish I was a police officer. I wish there was a police officer on a corner that could see it,
Right.
see, what I'm going through or what we're going through. So that was instilled in me for a long period of time. So went to a great high school in Long Island City in Astoria, and left there and traveled to Baltimore and went to school at Morgan State University.
Nice.
And since then, I've been right here. I've been right here. 2 wonderful kids. My son Daniel is 31, 32, and
What?
my my daughter is 23, and she's a new mom. So I'm a grandfather.
Oh,
for the first time.
congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
You
little
look so
Kennedy.
young.
I appreciate it.
Wow.
I appreciate it.
I would have never thought that. I
Yeah.
would have thought both your kids were in their 20s.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah,
So-
just one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just one. Yeah.
So, wow.
By the way, if I'm thinking about the same neighborhood in Queens, I don't want to blast the neighborhood that you're talking about.
Mhm.
I got chased out of that neighborhood by people that don't look like us, right?
Oh wow.
But, you know what? Y'all know my last name, right? Have the people in that community have a last name like me from that origin. Got chased out of there with bats and all that.
I know what you're gonna say. You want me to say it? Is it okay to say it?
Well, you can say
Hell
whatever you
yeah.
want.
Well, people are going to automatically think, number one, back then in the 70s, they're going to think, number one, it probably was Howard Beach. But
No, but I was in
but what was the adjoining community? It was Rosedale. It was
Rosedale.
Rosedale, New York. And
I know.
if anybody Googles Rosedale in the 70s, I'm not saying this, just go ahead and Google it.
right.
And you'll see what I went through. And I'm not making this up,
No, it's real stuff.
but Google Rosedale, Queens, 70s, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
These pockets.
You'll see it. You'll see it yourself. And
It's like,
enough said.
what is going on here?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that was my experience at an early age.
Because damn,
You
I
know.
got skin color. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they were from,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a challenge. you
for
know.
me, it was Howard Beach, and it was in the
Yeah.
2000s.
Oh wow, wow.
I got on that 11 bus.
Got a battery.
3 dudes with bats, all juiced up, rolling
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah,
What the fuck? I'm like, pew!
yeah,
Gotta
yeah,
go.
Yeah, I know when to run.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta run.
Yeah.
That was the day.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
So it's crazy that it's the same community.
yeah.
Wow.
Adjoining
That has to
community. Yeah.
change.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's still like that.
I think it's changed drastically. I think it's changed drastically
Good.
because I had the occasion to go there in 2016. Actually, it was actually a diner. I think it was Rockaway Boulevard. I could be wrong, but when my mother passed, we had a repast for her, and it was at a diner, and it was just completely different. I mean, people that did not look like me was very welcoming, and it was just really that atmosphere that I was so relieved to know that things have changed, at least there.
Right.
At least there.
So why Baltimore City for you?
I tell the story that I went to the War Memorial Plaza outside of City Hall, War Memorial Building, and there was a recruitment drive, and it was Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Maryland State Police. And for some reason, I just went to Maryland State Police first. I guess that was first in line. And I asked the recruiter, I said, can you tell me a little bit about the academy, how long it's going to be? Well, it's 26 weeks. I said, do I go home every day or do I have to stay on campus or something? And it was like, no, you stay. Weekends, we may let you go home. And me having some crazy college roommates, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to go through all that again. So Baltimore City was next. And I said to the recruiter, same question, do you have to stay on campus or do you go home? And he looked at me like I had three eyes. He said, nah, man, you go home.
Right. You get up out of here.
So I said, give me application.
Nice.
Yeah, give me application. Yeah.
So how was the initial police work like for you being a regular officer? What was that experience like?
I loved it.
Like what year you got on?
So I was in academy in 88. And by the time I graduated and was on the streets full fledged, it was early 89. And I truly loved it. And my first call for service, and y'all could probably relate to this a little bit being New Yorkers as well. But I remember going to a call for service in 1800 block of Chester Street. And it was an elderly woman who I just fell in love with. She was just like mom, and we were sitting there having a conversation. I really don't remember if it was, specifically what the call was for, but I was trying to figure out what that smell was. And I kept looking at the sink, and I was trying to pay attention to her, and I was looking at the sink, pay attention to her, look at the sink. I couldn't figure it out. I said, ma'am, I am so sorry. I said, please forgive me for my ignorance. I said, what in the world are you cleaning in the sink? It smelled kind of funny.
Right.
She said, young man, that's chitlins.
Mm.
And I said, wow. I said, what is a chitlin? Listen, I'm a New Yorker. Y'all know. We didn't know about chitlins.
We don't do all that at all.
Yeah, that's a little bit too much.
Yeah. So I was introduced. She invited me back, a little bit later on when it was cooked, and I tried it, and, she put a lot of hot sauce on there, and, I was like, oh, this is different,
Right.
But I mean, I loved it. I just love getting out of the patrol car, going to people's homes and just talking. I would talk just to people. And like I said, I just looked at people as though they were my mom or my dad or my brother or sister or somebody, some family member. And I that's just the way I carried it since early 89.
Wow, that's awesome. And you was on patrol for how long? What made you want to become a sergeant? What made you want to go through the ranks?
I think it was 1990. So we had a commissioner at the time that believed in a rotation policy that you spent 3 years, I think it was 3 years or 2 or 3 years in a specialized unit. Then you had to go to patrol, spend time in patrol, and then go back to a specialized unit if that's what you wished. And at the time I worked in drug enforcement downtown, and there was a rotation policy with the commissioner. And I volunteered because I wanted to go back to patrol because I wanted to get promoted. And I think that was sometime in 99 or 98 or 99. And I went back to patrol, and I spent some time in the Northwest District. I loved it. One of my favorite districts. And I said, you know what? I just want to be a supervisor. I want to be a sergeant. I had a sergeant when I was in the Eastern District, Mike Harding, who I had so much respect and admiration for. And I said, I want to be just like he is. He made a lasting impression. So did my Lieutenant Owen Sweeney, who died in the line of duty years after that. I think it was 1997. But I wanted to be a supervisor, and that's all I wanted to be was a sergeant. And I took the test, and I was successful, with the results of the test, and I ended up being a sergeant, getting promoted and going right to the Northeast District and going right to DDU.
Wow.
So that's when it started, and then I said to myself, I just want to keep going. I want to keep going and keep going and keep going, and I put my mind to it, and with the blessings of God, He had me, take these positions.
That's awesome.
He ordained them for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And majority of them was in the Northeast.
Yeah, Northeast.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
with that being said, you ended up obviously making it to number one. Like, can you please just tell me, because I love leadership, like what nuggets did you take, or like how was your leadership style? You know what I mean? Like
Well, I spent a lot of time. I love the uniform. Of course, I like investigations as well, but I spent 90% of my 30 years in uniform. And I always felt that the community needed us. And I always felt that I kind of took offense to the bad guy, trying to win. And I said, we can do better. We got to serve the community better. So I always took this operational posture, in my mind. I grew up playing chess, and I've been an avid chess player my entire life. And I said, no one, some guy or whomever, some person is, trying to commit crime and outwit or outfox the community or the police. I said, I think I can outwit them. So I really spent a lot of time thinking of operational things that were outside of the box that we can do to help and to lower, the crime. So I had that operational posture. And I maintained that operational posture throughout my entire career. And I said to myself, if I ever made commissioner, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to keep that operational posture, just keep moving, and just, there's bad folks in Baltimore. There's bad folks, and it's not fair. Small percentage. I know there's studies that say there's only, 3 to 5% of a population that does the majority of crime. I do, on the other hand, know that Baltimore is a great place, and they're the greatest folks, greatest community people I've met in my entire life. But it's not fair to them for them to be victimized. So I kept that operational posture.
How do you feel about hands-on policing?
When you say hands-on, what do you mean? Like just
Actively going out?
You have to.
like proactive?
Because
Yeah.
I'm curious, because, just to paint the picture for the world, everybody thinks it's you put that gun down right now and they'll give it to us. That's how you stop it. Like, how do you feel about the approach now as towards of, actively going out and getting these bad guys?
Well, again, so you have to. But here's the difference. You can't go out there and cast this giant net and say everybody in the community are bad people, because we all know that's not true.
Absolutely.
But we do know that they're what's called violent repeat offenders. And they get that name because
They're violent repeat offenders.
because they repeat.
Committing crimes.
Exactly. And those are the folks that need to be addressed. If they have an open warrant, if you know the areas where they are, if you know they carry guns, those are the folks that you need to pay attention to. You don't need to pay attention to mom or dad or this young man getting off a school bus.
Right.
It's the bad ones. It's the violent repeat offenders. It's the ones that you have to go after.
Nice.
Bottom line.
Period. I love it.
And so at this day and age, right? I just have to ask, because we're talking about that. So the guys, the detectives that go after these violent repeat offenders, how sometimes in a fight or something like that happens. Like, what is your opinion on like the charge heavy departments that are going on across the country?
Well,
for every little thing, it's like, oh, fire them, or like, do you see that?
I could, let me say this. People don't realize this. And let me say it this way. You have to use your police training, and you have to make sure training is appropriate, and you have to make sure that the level of use of force is appropriate, that what you are being confronted with. You can't go beyond that.
Right.
That's the bottom line. You cannot. But on the same token, if someone refused to be arrested and someone refuses to put their hands behind their back, it's almost impossible. Horton, how much do you weigh?
I'm about 255.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm like 275 now.
275. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm 187, 188. Okay. If you were trying to arrest me and I refused to allow you to arrest me and you wrestle me to the ground, you would not be able to get the handcuffs on me. People don't realize that. One of the hardest things is trying to get handcuffs on someone. Yeah. Now, granted, we've seen it in media play out. We've seen it across the country, where things are done inappropriately, bad arrests, they're far and few in between. But if it's a good arrest and you have probable cause to arrest somebody and that person does not want to go to jail and lays down and puts his hands under his chest, it's almost impossible to get their arms. I am not advocating at all what we saw in Minnesota, because that was just completely egregious. That was wrong. That was murder. To put your knee, we don't teach that.
Right.
You don't get that. There's no way in the world that you should put your weight on somebody's neck like that. But it's a tough job. It's a tough job.
Yeah. Yeah, we said that on the show a long time ago. Like, that was too much force.
Yeah.
Like,
and I would encourage that the, folks listening or community just at large, really just, police departments have citizens academies and, they shoot, don't shoot type scenarios. I mean, I did it when, I was doing a fellowship down in Virginia where we took a group of Howard University students to a simulator, and we asked them, and they were presented with different scenarios, and it was tough for them. I mean, there were some students there that didn't handle it well. There were some students there that just like, wow, how in the world do you do it?
Right.
How in the world do you do it? So it's tough.
It is tough.
It's tough.
But we love what we do. We have fun with it. And, that's the biggest thing, is letting the world know that, we do this, and, we love and we enjoy what we do. It's tough, but we got the right temperament for it. And that's why we brought this to the platform, and it don't get no better than what you have to bring to the table, because it's simply amazing. Like, you don't get this on a regular basis at all. And just your body of work displays that. And it's paramount. It's paramount to policing. Like, it's like the community is everything. They need us like we need them. And it's vital to our success as a police department to get out there and actually know them, get familiar with them, and build that relationship, that rapport, because they'll be there for you, man.
Absolutely.
And, I think that'll go a long way in, changing this thing around, the hierarchy of policing.
Absolutely. I think that in policing years ago, we looked at folks, particularly that had drug misuse. I don't want to say drug addiction, but they misused drugs. And we looked at them a certain way. And we looked at it in terms of criminalizing their behavior versus making it a health issue. And I think in retrospect, 20, 30, 40 years ago, when they start talking about the war on drugs, I think we missed the mark. I think if it was a war on drugs, we lost.
Right.
We lost. Some of the greatest people misuse. And you just don't know why they misuse. They could have had some type of challenge in their life. They could have had some type of storm that they were going through, and they had no other outlet. And they forced them to do what they had to do, use whatever they wanted to do. And I always think and talk about a story where there was a young lady, and you guys weren't in Baltimore then. You guys probably were still in elementary school, at least.
Right.
Are you familiar with Church Home Hospital?
No.
Okay, that's my point.
Gotcha.
So, Broadway and Fayette, it was a hospital they called Church Home Hospital. And I think it wasn't until 97 where we started, I think central booking opened up and you process things electronically. But back in the day, you had to handwrite probable cause statements. So there was a young lady that committed a crime. I took her to central booking at the time. They refused her because she was sick. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So we went to Church Home Hospital and we were waiting for a triage nurse to come and see her. And she sat next to me and I had the charging documents and I started writing these charging documents and she was right on my right shoulder. We were just talking and I was writing and she was looking at the work I was doing. And she says, Officer De Sousa, she says, you can't end a sentence in a preposition. I said, okay. And then she looked some more and she says, you need a comma there. And she said, oh, that's a run-on sentence right there. She says, you probably should put a transitional phrase in front of this sentence.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow.
And I go, what is what?
I almost fell up.
What is going on right
I almost
now?
fell out my chair. And I asked her, I said, ma'am, I said, no disrespect. I says, you are amazing. I said, you are phenomenal. I just learned so much in a few minutes with you than I learned probably in my lifetime in school.
Absolutely.
And
we should go back and talk to those teachers, huh?
Yeah. And she said to me, she says, well, I used to be an English teacher. Yeah, I used to be an English teacher. I said, yeah, I see. I said, you made all these corrections. People get confused with I before E and, even if I ask a person now, like, when do you use I before E?
Right.
And she says, oh, remember this? She says, I before E except after C. I said, okay, I did remember that in school. She says, well, remember this. She said, and this is back in the early 90s, and I still remember this. She said, either, neither, foreigner, sees weird heights. She said, remember that sentence. I said, what's the significance of that sentence? She says, well, that's when you use the E before I. And I went back and looked at those words and I said, oh man.
Yeah.
What are they again?
Foreigner and
either, neither, foreigner, sees weird heights.
weird heights.
Yeah.
Yeah, E before I. How about that?
So
Wow, she was a fun teacher then.
yeah, she
I was
said,
never told that.
yeah.
That's
So-
so wow.
So I learned so much from her, and she said that, her husband was involved in some illegal activities, and the feds came and knocked on her door and arrested her husband. And she was so depressed. She went into the deepest depression you could ever imagine. And she said she had no one to talk to and she had no coping mechanisms. And she went to her girlfriend's house. And she said, while she was at her girlfriend's house, her girlfriend said, hey, try this. And this turned into something more, and it turned into something more, and it turned into larger scales, that it got to the point where she started to misuse, some of the drugs. And it caused her to, be at that point. And in the early 90s, I said to myself, man, we're missing the mark with this. We are definitely missing the mark. We have to reevaluate how, we look at community and how people misuse drugs.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it could definitely happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how'd you feel being a commissioner? How was that experience?
It was short. It was a short journey. But I loved it. I loved it because, I thought I was able to influence a lot of the younger officers and kind of, instill in them, my philosophy about community first, community policing first, and how you treat other people. On the other hand, I'm still saddened because there was so much more that I had to give. There was so much more that I wanted to implement for Baltimore, and I think that it just would have went, it would have served the city well, So it pains me to know that. When I went to the federal institution, one of the toughest times of my life was, May 13th, 2019. That was my self-surrender day.
Was it?
Yeah. So when you say self-surrender, you have to surrender yourself.
Got it going.
So my good friends, my best friends, took me, and my loved ones took me to, Tashi took me to, drove me up to New Jersey. It would rain, cats and dogs. And, my best friend, rest his soul, Darren Sanders, just recently passed away. My best friend
Yeah,
just
sorry to
passed
hear
away,
that. God
passed
bless
away.
his soul.
About 10 days ago. Drove up to, New Jersey and took me to the facility. And it was probably the darkest moment of my life, but yet I didn't meet the darkest people. I met people that were just completely loyal.
So
Men.
the world wants to know, how was that experience like for you? That dark time.
Well, it was a dark place, but it wasn't dark people.
Right.
And it was difficult. And, one thing about lessons in life is that the greatest lesson I learned was not to give up on me. So I would say the greatest lessons for you or everybody that's listening is never give up on yourself.
Mm.
So I didn't want to give up on myself. I didn't want to be that ostrich that buried my head in the sand and say, well, 10 months ago, real quick, I ain't doing jack. I want to take a different posture, and I want to be like that eagle and say, you know what, I'm going to soar above this challenge. I'm going to make the best. I want to see how I can help somebody else. And I started journaling, and I said to myself, I want to walk. I want to walk a mile in, with somebody and hear their story and understand why people do certain things. So when you get to the institution, they give you these little slide-on sneakers or shoes that are very uncomfortable, and there's not much you can do. I mean, you get corns and bunions before you know it. So kind of like the protocol is that someone from your hometown gives you a pair of used sneakers. So I got a pair of used sneakers, and those sneakers tell a story. So I didn't know who had the sneakers, but I know who gave me the sneakers, Mr. Lee, my Jamaican friend from Brooklyn, but he got them from somebody else. But these sneakers tell a story. And I said to myself, I got to walk a mile with someone to hear their story just to be a better person. So if I can be a better person, I can go back and get to this day here with y'all and talk about these stories and talk about how we are really no different. Policing is no different to the young men and guys that are at an institution.
Right.
We have the same blood.
Absolutely.
Right. Bleed the same way, made up the same way, but we had challenges in our life. We got to a fork in the road that you or I would normally go to the right. And because of the situations in front of them, they went to the left. We can't judge them because we weren't in their shoes.
Absolutely.
So you can never judge someone until you literally walk them out in their shoes. So that's what I did. I walked with many guys and heard many amazing stories. And if there was a common denominator of all these stories, it's probably, fatherhood. And a lot of guys talked about their fathers were not in their lives. A father who were in their lives wasn't around for them. And I thought about myself, when they were telling me these stories. And, I was fortunate to have my dad with me, and my mom with me. And I thought about, my 30 years on the job and how, although I love my son, I think till this day, I could have done a better job being a father to him and my daughter, because I missed. And if there's one piece of advice I give you and all the other officers is that, make sure you spend time with your kids. It means the world to them, and you won't see it. You may not see it right then and there, but they'll appreciate it, when they get older. And one mistake I honestly can say to this day is that I wish I could have been there more for my kids. I remember missing so many birthdays because of work. I remember missing so many events or ball games that my daughter or my son may have had, or some after school or some PTA, or Dad, let's just hang out. Hallie, I'm sorry. Daniel, I'm sorry. I got to go to work. Family is more important. So this was a common denominator of men, where I was. And if they're saying it and I'm saying it, we have to do a better job being fathers to our kids.
Wow.
It's bottom line,
You touch on so many points there. You ever heard of Marcus Aurelius?
Yes.
He was a former,
Yes.
Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
He created that philosophy called Stoic.
Oh, wow.
Right. Put it like this, Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
See how like he was the commissioner. He was the emperor.
Mhm.
And whatever happened, boom, he's in jail.
Mm.
Put him in jail. Right? And what did he do with those fellow, people from jail? They had that one common denominator. Kind of like what you just said, which is just so crazy. And look what happened. He ended up leading them. Cause he was like kind of like their people's like gladiator, the champion.
Yeah, that's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, from the book, Marcus Aurelius, the real emperor, like he wrote a book called Meditations. And in one of them, same thing happened to him. Well, this is what Gladiator is based about. He's in jail, and instead of, like moping around or whatever, he believed in himself, started journaling, which is the book of Meditations.
oh, wow.
And ended up rising again. It was crazy.
Well,
That's where Amor Fati comes from, which is love your fate.
one of the first books that I read when I was at the institution was a good friend of mine sent it to me, and it was Just Mercy, and by Brian Stevenson. And they made a movie. Jamie Foxx starred in the movie, and I read the book. The book is 100 times better than the movie. The movie is great though, and it just resonated with me just by the author's name. Brian Stevenson was a guy that I worked with, Brian back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, just the first page, and it was really difficult reading that book. I mean, it was many nights that I'm in my bunk reading it, and I had to take the covers and put it over my head because my eyes were getting watery. It was such a great book. But in the book, he writes, one of his excerpts in the book is that he says, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. And I think about, and I actually, you think about it, like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? And I think about it. The worst thing that I've ever done was I wasn't, on the job, I wish I would have prevented a homicide or prevented the homicides we share or we had. I wish I would had the ability to stop that robbery. I wish I had the ability to go to a school and talk to that kid. I wish I was there for my son or my daughter more. Those are the things in my mind that are the worst things that I put myself in the picture and say, I wish I could have changed. But at the end of the day, you can't judge somebody just on one incident. You got to look at, and they have to look at themselves that they're greater than that. They've done great things in their lives,
Wow. That's awesome. And it always boils down and goes back to how you treat people. Because even when you said, when you had that quick visit, a few people that you bumped into, they knew you was coming and they took care of you.
Oh yeah. So it was my second day there, May 14th, that my eventual bunkmate comes up to me and says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I'm like, "Man, this is my second day up in here. What
the fuck did I do?" Damn.
Yeah. I said, "What did I do?" You know what I mean? So we take a walk on that gravel mile. That gravel mile. It's fifth of a mile around is gravel. 5 times around is a mile. So I call it the gravel mile. And he said to me, he says, "Listen, everybody in here knows that you're the former commissioner. Everybody here knows you were in law enforcement. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay." Showed me an email on the email system that pretty much summed it up. And I was humbled by it and I felt good by it. And, the gist of the email was that, hey, listen, he was a good guy back home. He treated people with respect. Y'all make sure that y'all look out for him when y'all were over there. And that's what they did. When I say they, there was 13 guys from, at the time when I was there, from Baltimore, and a lot of respect for each and every one of those guys, and a lot of respect for guys from other cities, because it was really, everybody was, trying to just do their time, didn't want any problems, wanted to, just be peaceful and just do their time. And, that whole stigma about prison is that if you're in law enforcement, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, which, hey, it's true.
Sometimes you are.
Sometimes, yeah. But there was folks there that, didn't like the profession because, look, the profession put them in there. So, everybody was not my friend.
But you had some real ones on.
But I had some real ones there, and it was all good. It was all good.
Wow.
See, it's all in how you treat people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if somebody made that decision, like, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
That nobody touched you.
Nobody touched you?
That message came from
Yeah.
big place, in that world.
Yeah.
That somebody,
Yeah. My bunkmate and what's ironic is that, my bunkmate, he's from Baltimore, and the same time I was the commander of the Northeast District, he was doing his thing, and I'm not judging, but he was doing his thing in the Northeast.
Wow.
And would you ever imagine that our paths would cross?
It's crazy.
It's insane.
And
out of all places.
And the conversations we had and the people that we knew,
Right.
equally, the people that we knew equally, and just,
it's crazy how you building that rapport.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it wasn't nothing like, I'm not fucking with you because you're police. You're a real
Right.
guy.
Right.
So when you have two grown men having a real conversation, that goes, man, through the roof.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's awesome.
Those conversations are probably they have more value than money.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? When it's two men, like you said,
Definitely.
and y'all come to that understanding,
Absolutely.
shit's worth more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what this podcast is about, man. We want everybody to come in, speak to real officers. Hell, we got a phenomenal commissioner on. Are you kidding me? This man changed the landscape of policing in Baltimore City. And, oh man, his vision was paramount. And, we're missing that. We're missing that camaraderie. We're missing that rapport. And it's not the same, And I guess, in individual, sectors and units, they still have that bond. But, patrol, it's ran the way it's ran.
If there is one message, right now that I can give the department is that patrol is the backbone.
Absolutely.
Patrol is the backbone, and patrol officers should have all the resources that they need at their fingertips. And you take care of patrol, you take care of the entire police department. And when I say you take care of patrol, you make sure that those days that they need off, they get off. If they're fatigued and can't work a double shift, give them the opportunity to go home and figure another way out. Because, you don't want somebody that's worked, 14 hours showing up at your doorstep,
right.
To address an issue, and the community doesn't know that. They don't know it. They don't know that there's officers out there that's fatigued doing the job. And I'm not saying this, I'm not bashing administration, but I'm saying this is real, and there's solutions. There are solutions available. There's solutions, there's ways, that, you can prevent this from happening. And they just gotta, reach deep back and have conversations and say, where can we put people, on the streets? It's basically all hands on deck. It's bottom line.
To add to that, can I ask you, what is your opinion or strategy on recruitment and salary? See what I'm saying? Because I can't get off if we're short.
Well, y'all should get paid 10 times more than what you're making.
You know what I'm saying?
10 times more, because there's so many things that community doesn't realize what y'all do.
Right.
And it's a lot. It really is a lot. And I think I talked about just briefly, I just maybe scraped the surface about some of the things that y'all do that people don't normally talk about. But recruitment is a challenge. And I think I read in a recent article, there's 250 short, and the monitors from the consent decree say, no, it's more than that.
It is.
The bottom line is that you're short. Okay.
Right.
And there really needs to be some type of evaluation on the recruitment process and who you want in the police department. And there are folks in the community that are really frustrated and fed up with what they're seeing. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for them to say, I want to be a police officer. I know folks have some background challenges, but those challenges were made up. Those challenges were created, I should say. They're guidelines that were created. And there really needs to be an evaluation on those guidelines. For example, the marijuana use. I mean, it's decriminalized in certain places. And I'm not advocating saying that officers should use marijuana because I think they should not. Okay. But what I'm saying is that if you're under the age of 21, I think you were allowed 20 usages. So suppose there's some young man that is dying to be a police officer. Could be somebody like you, Dre, or somebody like you, Big H, and say you were one over. You were one over that number under the age of 21. So you did 21 under the age of 21 usage. You're disqualified. But what's the difference between 1 and 5? Yeah. There needs to be, and what I'm saying is that there needs to be, a community input on who they want, and what the standards should be. Again, I'm not advocating for someone with a horrific criminal background because that's not the folks that you need on the streets. But there's certain little small things that probably need to be evaluated on folks that are disqualified.
Right. How do you feel about the retention? That's always been an issue.
Yeah, retention is equally as challenging as recruitment. And there should be a really robust retention plan to keep guys like y'all on the job. Right. Bottom line, period. Right. There's got to be better incentives for y'all.
Absolutely. I seen a dude that had 15 years on leave. I said, damn.
He probably went to another agency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's one I know that went federal. I said, bro, you got all this time on. He's like, fuck it.
Yeah, there has to be incentives to keep some of the talent. And there's a lot of talented people in the police department, a lot of young women and young men that are just all stars. And they stay here and they don't see, a pathway. They don't see them getting to, that homicide unit where they want to work. They don't see that. And it should be no different than you going to college and saying, this is what my major is. Right. So my major is law, for example. So this is your pathway. You're going to be in patrol 3 years. You're going to be a detective for 2 years. You got to give them a pathway and let them see it and let them know it's real.
Yeah, visualize it so they can understand it.
And they stay.
Right. And instead of just, you'll get there one day.
Exactly.
Right. Because that gets old.
It gets old. Yeah. They have to have a pathway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. One of my questions deals with leadership. For people that are moving up, what's some of the really good advice you give them? And then what's some things that you should look out for with going up and becoming a leader?
Well, you always got to remember being a leader. You got to take charge. You got to let them know that you're in a leadership role and, that's the first thing, but you really can't change, who you are as a person. And I've seen leaders change each rank that they've gone through and they've gone away from, that core person, who they were. So you never compromise your personality, be firm, be fair, give a person an opportunity to, clean slate if they've had some mishaps before. I do believe in discipline. It should be progressive discipline, however, and it should be fair. And, everyone should have equal right and, the roles that they want to do on the job or the promotions that they want. It should be fair across the board, black, white, whatever your ethnicity is, your religion, whatever your faith is, it doesn't make a difference. You just treat people as a human being. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier that, you're looking at that person, although they're your subordinate, you're still looking at that person as a younger brother or younger sister. And you have to get them prepared because, you're not going to be in that position forever. So why not leave them, leave something, or leave a legacy where, you gave someone an opportunity, particularly someone who may not have had an opportunity before. You give them an opportunity if you believe in them.
Powerful. Yeah, me and Dre lifers, we're not going away. It's BPD all day.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah. With the good or the bad, whatever.
Yeah. We're going to grind it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The community needs y'all.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They, to me, when I got on the job, the older officers were officers that we looked up to.
Right.
And you guys are the older officers.
It's funny you said that.
Yeah.
All the young guys, that when I trained in the academy, it's just love. And I appreciate that because, I love, the department we work for. It's changed my life. I love what we do. And I always pass that along to them about, rapport, family, take care of your brother, your sister. And, always embedded that in them. And every time I see them, they just brighten up. They smile. Yo, Ralph, what's up? And it's a beautiful thing. So, small changes and overall, we'll get there one day.
Absolutely.
To where it should be.
Absolutely.
So what's next for yourself? What's going on?
Oh, I got a couple of projects I'm working on.
Okay.
A couple of good things. I'm working on a book.
Really?
So I'm diligently working on that. And I got great advice about maybe 4 or 5 months ago because I thought, it should be done. I'm behind, or I got to write some more. I got to change this. I got to change that. And I got some great advice about 4 months ago from a Baltimore legend, an icon, in Baltimore. I had a conversation with him. COVID was really rampant around that time. So we did a Zoom call and, he said to me, Darryl, he says, the advice I'll give you, and he gave me a ton of advice. He said, the advice I'll give you right now is when you're writing your book, one word at a time. So although the majority of it is done, sometimes I get up in the morning and when I start writing, if I literally write one word, it's a win. It's a win for me.
Like that touch.
Yeah. If I write, obviously it's not one word, but if I write very briefly, then it's a win. It's what I want to get across. But if I write, half a chapter or a chapter, okay, so it's a chapter, but I'm taking my time. So I'm doing that. I got a public safety, project that's coming out. I'm not going to say completely what it is.
Nice.
And I'm not saying completely what it is, but I'll make sure I share it with you guys. You'll be one of the first to know about it. But I'm still trying to give back the best way I can to Baltimore because Baltimore has been so great to me.
Absolutely. Amazing. Wow. We appreciate you coming on, boss. Means everything. Means everything. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 99. I'd like to thank Mr. Darryl De Sousa coming out. He means everything to us. He means everything to Baltimore. Over 30 years of service. Over 30 years. He groomed us. And that's why we love him dearly. And we appreciate everything he's done.
And right now he's sitting here with a smile.
Word.
Like that's amazing. All that. Sitting here with a smile.
I'm sitting here with a smile. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm glad for the opportunity. I love the men and women that wear the badge and the men and women that don't wear the badge as civilians because they don't get enough love and props that they have to. And I love the community. So thank you for having me. If I was still on the job and I had a radio on my lapel right now, and I know you said this is episode 99. You know what the first thing I would say right now?
What would it be?
The last thing I would say right now was 99, 10, 18.
Woo!
get to go home on time.
That.
Baby, thank you.
Be safe, everybody. We love you. Episode 99.
Wow.
Just made history. Be safe.
18.
18.
The views and opinions expressed on the Silverback podcast are those of the hosts, producers, and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect